Okay, so Twisted Love. This one, well, let's just say it's gotten some strong reactions.
Definitely seems to be dividing readers. Some love it, some, well, not so much.
Yeah, and that's what we are going to try to figure out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what is it about this book that's pushing people's buttons?
A lot of passion out there about what makes a good romance and maybe what crosses the line.
Exactly. So Twisted Love, it kind of throws you right into the deep end, with this whole world of complicated relationships.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Ava Chen, seems like a normal college student into photography, but then
There's Alex.
Alex Volkov, best friend of the brother, and things get intense pretty quickly.
Definitely got that forbidden romance vibe going on strong.
Yeah.
And that pull between them, you can't deny it, but Alex, there's something about him.
Yeah, he's a bit of a mystery, right? And those feelings he has for Ava, I mean, they're strong, but...
Borderline possessive, even obsessive, you could say.
Which is, I guess, why we're seeing such different reactions. I mean, some reviewers are just hooked, calling it like an addictive read, that they can't put it down. The chemistry is just that good.
You see that a lot with this type of character, right? The brooding alpha male, maybe a bit dangerous. It's a popular trope for a reason.
Yeah.
But it's a tricky line to walk, isn't it? Between like protective and passionate versus controlling.
Totally. And that seems to be the big sticking point for a lot of the negative reviews. They're seeing Alex's behavior as, well, straight up problematic, manipulative, isolating. Like, should this kind of relationship even be romanticized at all?
It's interesting there, right? Because both sides are seeing the same things in him, the intensity, the way he's always got to be in control, but they're coming to completely opposite conclusions. Some are swooning, others are like running for the hills.
Like, is it the author's intention?
Yeah.
To make Alex this divisive character on purpose? And it's not just him. Ava gets some criticism too.
Yeah. You get those who think she's too passive, letting Alex walk all over her. But then others argue she's actually pretty strong in her own way, that she does push back when she needs to. It's not like she's just a pushover.
So it's deeper than just liking or disliking the characters, right? It gets into this whole question of, like, what do we expect from romantic relationships? Where's the line between healthy and, not so healthy?
Absolutely. And that's what makes this book and this discussion, I think, so interesting. It forces us to look at those expectations, at the messages we're getting, not just from books, but from everywhere. Like, what are you romanticizing?
It's almost like people are either totally swept up in the intensity of it all, or they're just put off by the whole thing. They're seeing those red flags, and they can't get past it.
At the core of it, I think, it's that question. When does passionate love become unhealthy? And maybe even a bit dangerous, and how much of that interpretation, how much what we're seeing is about us, our own experiences.
Right, because we all bring our own baggage to every story we read, our own ideas about what love should look like. And sometimes that can really color how we see the characters and their relationships.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to try to unpack today. Like, what is it about Twisted Love that's getting people so riled up? What are the different interpretations out there? And ultimately, why does any of this matter?
Yeah. So if you're listening and you're intrigued by this whole discussion, we really recommend you check out Twisted Love for yourself. You can actually listen to it for free with Audible's 30-day free trial.
The link's down in the description. And honestly, it's the best way to experience the story, hear those voices, and decide for yourself where you land on this whole Alex Volkov debate. Because he is a character.
And while you're at it, don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment letting us know what you think. We always love hearing from you guys. But now let's dive a bit deeper into the actual story of Twisted Love. So it starts with Ava Chen, seemingly ordinary college student, but she has this hidden passion for photography.
And then she gets swept up in this whole romance with Alex Volkov, right, her brother's best friend. He's this mysterious figure and seriously intense.
Oh, yeah, he's like the classic bad boy, right?
Right.
Rich, powerful, and definitely carrying some baggage. Those early encounters between them, electric.
But there's this like underlying darkness too. Alex's possessiveness, it's right there from the start. Always got to be in her business, making decisions for her.
And that's where I think the controversy really starts. Some readers eat that stuff up. They see it as like proof of how much he loves her. But for others, it's a huge turnoff.
Big red flag. Like, is this love or is it something more toxic? Is he actually trying to protect her or is it all about control?
That's the question, isn't it? It hangs over the whole book.
Yeah.
You never quite know what his real motives are. And that keeps you guessing. Plus, you've got the whole forbidden love thing, right? He's her brother's best friend.
Adds that extra layer of complexity and maybe a bit of excitement, too. Like, the more forbidden it is, the more appealing it becomes.
Let's talk about the writing itself for a second. A lot of people describe Ana Huang's style as really vivid, almost poetic.
She definitely knows how to create a mood, an atmosphere. And she doesn't shy away from describing the physical attraction between Ava and Alex either, which, some people love, others find a bit much.
But you got to admit, it's engaging. She keeps those pages turning. And one thing that struck me is how she handles those darker, more controversial parts of the story. She doesn't try to sugarcoat Alex. He's flawed, maybe even messed up in some ways, but that's part of what makes him so interesting.
Yeah, she leaves it up to you, the reader, to decide how you feel about him. Love him, hate him, maybe a bit of both.
Exactly. And that ambiguity makes it a really compelling read. It forces you to think, to confront your own ideas about love and what's acceptable, even in a fictional world.
And speaking of acceptable, we should probably address some of the criticisms, right? Because there have been a lot. Like, some people feel this book is romanticizing a toxic relationship.
Yeah, I mean, there's no denying that Alex can be controlling, even manipulative. And I get why some people are concerned about that, especially younger readers who might not, have the experience to recognize those red flags.
It's a valid point. And it's always important to remember that fiction is fiction. It's not a guidebook for real-life relationships.
Totally. But even with that in mind, I think it's still possible to enjoy a story and appreciate the characters without condoning their actions, right?
For sure. It's about finding that balance, enjoying the story for what it is, but also thinking critically about the messages it might be sending.
Okay, another criticism. Predictability. Some people have said the plot is kind of, been there, done that, the bad boy, the innocent girl, all that.
I can see that. It does rely on some pretty familiar tropes, but honestly, I think it's the execution that matters. Ana Huang takes those tropes and she makes them her own.
Like, it's familiar, but it still feels fresh. And maybe that's part of what people love about romance novels, right? It's comforting in a way, you kind of know what you're going to get, but within that, there's still room for nuance, for complexity.
And Twisted Love does do that well. It doesn't shy away from the harder parts of love, the challenges, the compromises.
Now, Ava's character, she gets some flack too. Some people find her a bit frustrating. Like, why does she put up with Alex's controlling behavior?
Yeah, some of her choices are definitely head-scratchers. But you gotta look at her whole journey, right? At the beginning, she is a bit naive, maybe sheltered, but she grows a lot over the course of the book.
She learns to stand up for herself, to set boundaries. It's not always pretty, but that makes her relatable, right? She makes mistakes, she's flawed, but she figures it out.
And real growth is like that, right? Messy, unpredictable.
Exactly. And that's what makes Twisted Love so interesting to me. It's full of contradictions. It leaves you with more questions than answers. It's the kind of book that sticks with you, makes you rethink things.
Makes you think about love, about relationships, about the choices we make. And I think that's valuable. And I think, one scene that really captures that is the cabin scene, right? Where Alex takes Ava to this secluded cabin in the woods.
Yeah, that one gets mentioned a lot. People see it as like peak controlling behavior. He basically cuts her off from everyone, her friends, her family.
It's definitely a power move. And I can see why some readers would interpret it as romantic, this grand gesture of escape.
But the power dynamic is hard to ignore, right? Like, he's making all the decisions, she's kind of stuck there with him. It really gets to that question. Is this love, or is it something darker?
Exactly. And then you've got that scene where Alex confronts the guy who's harassing Ava.
Total hero moment, right? He comes to her rescue, shows how far he'll go to protect her.
But he's also pretty quick to resort to violence, right? Some people might find that attractive, but for others, it's another red flag.
It's like the book is playing with you, making you feel those conflicting emotions. You're drawn to his strength, but there's that unease too. Like, is this guy safe?
I think Twisted Love does a good job of exploring those gray areas, and that's what keeps it interesting.
Right, because if you're looking for a sweet, simple romance, this ain't it. But if you like your stories with a bit of edge, exploring those darker sides of love and desire,
Twisted Love might just suck you right in.
It definitely makes you think, that's for sure.
And that's what good books should do, right? Make you question things, maybe even see the world a little differently.
I think that's a good place to wrap up, right? We've covered a lot. But at the end of the day, Twisted Love is a book that gets people talking. Whether you love it or hate it, it sparks a reaction.
It challenges you.
Yeah.
And makes you examine your own beliefs about love and relationships, which honestly is never a bad thing.
Before we go, don't forget you can listen to Twisted Love for free with Audible's 30-day trial. The link's in the description.
It's a great way to experience the story for yourself and decide where you stand on the whole Alex Volkov debate.
And let us know what you think. Leave a comment below. We love hearing from you guys.
And if you enjoyed this episode, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive into the books everyone's talking about. Until then, happy reading.